My name is Steve Grossman, and I have the privilege of serving as CEO of ICIC, the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City. And I could not be more excited about this afternoon's panel, Leading in Turbulent Times. We have an extraordinary group of business leaders, and of course, our favorite professor with us, who's taught so often at our national conference, has been such an important asset in the growth and development of ICIC. I, of course, am referring to Lynda Applegate. But before I acknowledge and introduce our panel and introduce Lynda, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Mike Shore, the director of our data strategy and innovation team. I want to thank his colleague, Vimai, our deputy director. But I particularly want to thank Maria Galino, their colleague, who poured her heart and soul into this program because she knew how important it was and is. And we've got a wonderful, wonderful group of participants from all over the country. And finally, I want to thank Nadia Larasati. Nadia, part of the Inner City Capital Connections team, and oversees our entire coaching program nationwide. I'm blessed with 44 colleagues living all over the country, working hard to support small businesses during these very challenging times, and I'm blessed to be their colleague. I was thinking about this group, and I only had one analogy that I could use, and some of you may know a little bit about baseball. My analogy is that this team looks a little bit like the 1927 New York Yankees, quite possibly the best baseball team ever put together. Some of you may know the history of that team. They won the World Series 4-0 over the Pittsburgh Pirates. They had a few players on it that you might know, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, among others. And that's the caliber and quality of the people who are participating in this panel. Sion Tassone from Ticini in Miami, the #1 Inner City 100 winner last year, the fastest growing inner city business in America, 2020 winner, and a graduate of the Owner and President's Management Program of the Harvard Business School. Susanna Robledo from Cube Care, a 2020 Inner City 100 winner, also winner of the Chevron Dorothy A. Terrell Community Impact Award. Also a participant in the 10,000 Small Business Program in Miami back in 2015. Fifi Bell-Clanton and Gwendolyn Woods from the Crabby Shack in Brooklyn. 2020 Inner City 100 winners, participants in 10,000 Small Businesses in New York in 2019, and participated and did such an amazing job at talking about the challenges faced by BIPOC restaurant owners during this pandemic. And finally, Brianne Mees from Tender Loving Empire, a 2020 Inner City 100 winner, as they all are, winner of the FedEx Champion of Global Entrepreneurship Award, and a graduate of the 2019 Portland, Oregon Inner City Capital Connections Program. Lynda, we can't thank you enough for coming back again and again. You did this last year during the toughest times small businesses have faced in 100 years. You come back every year to our national conference to teach a new case and to highlight innovation, imagination, bold, transformative, small business leadership. And we're thrilled and grateful to have you. I want to thank FedEx and Chevron, our two leading sponsors for the Inner City 100 program and for our national conference, at which we reveal every year the Inner City 100 list. So I want to encourage any alumni listening here this afternoon, any people listening this afternoon who know businesses, your own or somebody else's, who might be interested in the Inner City 100 Award, which rewards and honors the fastest growing companies. If you know of a company that should be nominated, please nominate them. If you yourself want to self-nominate, please do so. We would be thrilled to have you. And you'll be honored and announced and revealed at the national conference, which will take place once again in early December. Our initial application deadline is June 6th, so please apply soon and please nominate many people, as many people as you can. So I won't go through Lynda Applegate's full bio. It would take a good part of the session. Lynda is the Baker Foundation Professor at Harvard Business School. He has been chair of the Harvard Business School Owner, Manager, Executive Education Program, the signature executive education program of the Harvard Business School. She has been co-chair of the MBA program at Harvard Business School. She's the author of over 40 articles, books, and book chapters, and over 400 published case studies. And she received recently the Robert F. Greenhill Award for her outstanding contributions to Harvard Business School over the course of her career. Lynda is one of the most distinguished business professors in America. We're honored and proud to have her. At this point, let me introduce Lynda Applegate. Lynda, take it away.
Thank you, Steve. It's wonderful to see everybody. And Mike, did you have anything to say before we get started? Are you all set? Okay, so I can't thank everyone from ICIC and all of you for all you're doing to really enable us to not just survive this crisis, but to thrive during it. And that's really kind of the theme of what we'll be talking about. Today, we're going to focus on leadership. So any of you that have heard me speak either last May or last December, when I was speaking on crisis and innovating through crisis, we'll talk a little bit, we'll talk about innovation for sure, but we're going to focus on leadership. And I'm really excited about our panel. Let me bring up my slides and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, can everybody see my slides? You all set? Okay. Because there's so many people now, what we're going to do is chat your questions and comments. Just keep chatting. So as you hear things, if something strikes you, you've got an insight you'd love to talk about a little later, just, chat it in. And at the very end, Mike will call on people for Q&A. So we're going to do our Q&A then. You've been introduced to all of us, and you're going to meet all the panel as we go forward. But first, I'm going to do a little bit of background before we get to the panel. So the topic, leading in turbulent times, strategies for small businesses to survive and thrive. Keep that thriving in your focus while we go through. I want to start with a cartoon. I love this cartoon, okay? Leading in turbulent times. It's a journey, not a destination, all right? So how many of you have ever raced dog sleds, okay? My mother's from Canada, so I actually know something about dog sled racing, which is why I love this cartoon so much. So if we were at Harvard in the classroom, I'd have people coming in and out, but we will wait till the end. But what I love about this, that he's saying the person on the sled, and don't forget the purpose of the dog sled is is all about getting the sled to a place, okay? So the person on the sled is getting ready to get started. And the back dog says, if you're not the lead dog, the scenery never changes. Okay, how many of you have had that experience? If we would, we're interactive, could be interactive, I'd say, what does the back dog see that front dogs don't? And then I quickly, change that to, wait a minute. Let's start with the front dog. What's the lead dog see that the back dogs don't? And if you think about it, they see the horizon. They see what's going on out there. They've got a clear picture of the future, where we're going in the future. And all of what's changing out there and what's happening and what's going on down the road a little bit, down the path a little bit of where we're going to go, okay? So they've got that unobstructed view if they're looking up. I can't tell you how many companies I work with where the lead dog, the person that's running, driving the sled and, trying to get it someplace, got their head down, watching their feet. That's not the way to really understand what's changing out there and to, drive your dogs like pros, to lead like a pro, okay? So then after I say that, I say, okay, now let's get to that back dog. What does the back dog know that the front dogs don't? What's important about that? The back dog is closest to the sled, closest to the, where you're trying to, the destination, what you're trying to actually get done. You're trying to move that sled to a specific place. So they're closest to the sled. And so if the lead dog's out there and they're just jumping along, et cetera, and going along, and the sled's going like this, like this, like this, the back dogs are the first ones to understand what's going on and how well the whole pack is moving forward. They also see whether what the other dogs in the line are doing. Okay, are those middle dogs, going off in two different directions, et cetera, et cetera? The front dog should know that. If you've got a good, well-trained team, they all know that. But frequently they don't. They are so busy leading that they forget that there's other people that have to follow and that they all have to be working together as a team. Okay? So the middle dogs are, actually helping to, pull the sled forward and keeping everything going on in straight line, et cetera, et cetera. Question: does it make a difference if you're leading into familiar or unfamiliar territory? Anybody who's ever raced dogs knows that when the path is something you've taken before, you understand the path, you know where you're going, and you're all kind of lined up, everybody just lines up in a straight line and you run like crazy because that's the fastest way to get there. However, if you're going into very uncertain territory, the fastest way is not necessarily the best way. So I don't know whether you've seen the Disney movie 8 Below. When my son was little, we watched, how many of you watch videos over and over and over again? I must have seen that movie at least 15 times, 20 times, okay? And it's all about a research scientist and a research base in Antarctica. And there's a scientist coming down that wants to do some work on the glacier. He wants to do some research on the glacier. And comes down at a time when the glacier is unstable because it's been melting. So the head of the research center says, no, you can't come now and go out on the glacier. It's too dangerous. He goes, I have to. I got this grant. It's a lot of money. I'll pay you a ton of money if you'll let me go. So finally, the guy that runs the research center gives in. And the person that's actually going to be taking the sled, the person that runs the dog sled, says, no way, it's really dangerous. He goes, I can't help it. He's going to pay a lot of money. We need the cash, da, 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 da. And so they end up having to go. Okay? So what you see in the video is before the person comes down, the person that's running the dog sled, he goes out and maps the whole territory, checks the ice, plans the path, et cetera, so that he knows that it's a safe path to go on. The research scientist comes in, they get started on the journey, and the research scientist says, oh, by the way, he's sitting on the sled, by the way, I want to go somewhere else, so can we go over here? And they got, no way, you can't go over there, we haven't checked the path. He goes, I'm sorry, but we've got to. So what you see happening is when they're on the path that was straightened out, what they'd already checked, the dogs are all lined up. When they get to the glacier and the part where they haven't checked the ice, The person that's driving the sled gets off the sled, unhooks the dogs, unharnesses them, and puts them in a fan position. A fan position is the middle dogs. So you've got the front dog, the back dog, and then you fanned out your middle dogs, okay? Why do they do that? Because number one, it gives you the perspective, a bigger perspective, number one. You can see in different directions. Number two, you can't go real fast that way. It slows you down. So that's might be a downside, but it's important. And number three, and most important, is if something happens where the sled starts to go through the ice, if you fanned your dogs, they can all pull against it, okay? And right the sled so they all don't just go flying under the ice, okay? Sure enough, they get to the ice, they fan the dogs, they're going really slowly. The person that is in charge of running the sled is right by the front dog, checking the ice, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, the back rung of the sled goes in. What do you see happening? The dogs all pull against it, they stop, they pull against it, and they right the sled and change their path. That's the way you lead change in very turbulent times, where you don't have a clear view of what's happening in front of you, where there are things happening that you can't, plan for ahead of time. And what you need to do when you are doing that is, how do you expand your horizon so that you have a better look at what's going on? How do you narrow your focus so you are moving forward, but slower, on a path that you're choosing, and more importantly, you're executing with discipline, and you've got that safety net under, so that if something happens, you can pull against, and you can right the sled and keep going, et cetera, et cetera. Keep this in mind as we go through this presentation, okay? And put down questions for these panelists, because every one of them has been leading in really turbulent times, and they're all small businesses that are trying to survive. So put those questions down. I also love this quote. Charles Darwin: "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." Okay, the ones that can respond the quickest, understand, actually be able to change directions and, pull against what's happening, change where we're going, right the sled, et cetera, et cetera. What I love about that is I joined Harvard Business School faculty. If you were doing the listening to Steve in the beginning, I joined Harvard Business School faculty in the early 1980s. Before that, I'd been teaching at the University of Washington in Seattle in the 70s. Don't do the math. It's not pretty, okay? So I joined in the early 80s. And I was recruited to HBS to help start a technology innovation group at HBS before it became really popular. So this was when technology was brand new. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. Okay, I think that comes from growing up in Detroit, okay, and having to be a street fighter, because my dad was a factory worker in Detroit. I worked at the Rouge plant to put myself through college, and you learn to hustle, and I brought that same spirit with me all through my career, okay? So when I got to Harvard, that was my, my entrepreneurial background. After we started the Tech Innovation Group in the mid-90s, I helped several other faculty and I started the Entrepreneurial Management Unit. I ran that for a number of years, and over the last 15 years, I have been chairing all of our executive programs for business owners and entrepreneurs, okay? So I've been on this entrepreneurial, side, innovation side, with a big tech underneath all of it. Our definition in the 90s, when we started the entrepreneurship department, it was before there was really a science of entrepreneurship. You couldn't hire an entrepreneurship faculty member. You couldn't get an entrepreneurship textbook back then. You know, there might have been a few of them out there, but that was not what people were thinking about. So we were actually building out what is entrepreneurship right from the beginning. Our definition of entrepreneurship that we chose came from Howard Stevenson, one of the faculty that I started the unit with. He was really the lead on that. He came up with this definition. Entrepreneurship is the relentless pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resources currently controlled. What I love about that definition has nothing to do with size of company, has nothing to do with age of company, has nothing to do with what industry you're in. It's a way of leading. We teach entrepreneurship as a leadership style, as a way of leading. It's a way of leading where rather than looking at your feet all the time, you're picking your head up, you're looking down the field, you're trying to understand what's changing, not just what is. You know, so you're not just looking at what's staying the same, you're saying what's changing out there? And how do I make sense of all these things that are happening so that I can really understand where the opportunities are and threats, and not just today, but also in the future. Okay, so if I understand that there's opportunities out there and maybe potential threats, how do I then back that up and say, what's a strategic position I can take today that will allow me to start moving toward the opportunities, that will allow me to start changing, you know, addressing some of the threats I'm seeing, et cetera, et cetera. How do you back up even further and say, no one executes a vision? You don't even execute a strategy. You execute projects, initiatives, or get things done. So if I'm seeing some opportunity out there or some threats, I'm backing up and saying, what's a strategic position I need to get to start addressing those opportunities, going after the opportunities, addressing the threats. Then how do I back it up even further and say, what are the projects and initiatives that I need to do today to start moving toward that strategy? That's the way we teach entrepreneurship. Now, we say it's opportunity driven, not just playing the ball at your feet or looking down at your feet, right ahead of you. It's relentless because you never get it right the first time when you're trying to really say what's going to happen out there in the future. And then finally, you never have the resources you need when you get started. So you always have to learn how to pitch, how to engage other people, get other people involved so that you can all work together as a team to actually start moving forward, just like our dog sled. Now, crisis like the global economic crisis like the dot-com crisis, we've been through a couple before the pandemic came. Those crises were economic crises that if you understood how to look at the analytics of what was going on during the dot-com era, when we started getting all the data on all these companies that were not doing well, if you knew how to look at the data, you could understand, say, as more and more dot-com companies went public, you say, wait a minute, this dog's not hunting. You know, we've got to really think differently. And so Amazon, some other people actually stopped their dot-com businesses, started other kinds of businesses before the dot-com crisis, and they survived. Same with the global economic crisis. Then it was a credit crisis. But if you understood the markets and how to analyze them and what was going on, you could see ahead of time that there were changes happening that signaled it's better to get out of credit right now and put my money in cash, okay? Because things are not looking good. The pandemic, the global pandemic, was different for some people. Those of us in healthcare, when I taught at at University of Washington, I actually taught in the medical school. I was the head of Director of Health Services for the city of Seattle. So healthcare people had been preparing for pandemics. Why we didn't understand this and respond better, that's another story. But most people didn't understand that this crisis was coming, so it caught lots of people off guard. And the economic crisis was immediate because of the lockdowns that went on, okay? So that's a crisis that you can't necessarily predict a lot in advance, but you still use the very same kind of approach to how to think about it. You're going to hear our panelists talk about how they led through crisis, how they responded. And one of the things I say is, stage one of leading through crisis, stabilize and defend your current position, your core business. What can you do to defend? What's the big problems you have? It's the cash flow problem. How do I think about cutting costs, et cetera, et cetera? And if you do that early, that helps to at least give you the resources you need to survive. But that's not going to help you move through that crisis. The second stage is there a compelling pain in the market for either current customers, current suppliers, or adjacent customers, suppliers, somebody that I could actually solve that problem using a lot of the resources I have. You saw a lot of restaurants start selling groceries, doing takeout, et cetera, et cetera. There's a compelling pain in the market. People can't go out anymore. How do we actually get things to them? And then second of all, there's a compelling pain in the market. People are not able to always go to the big grocery stores. The stores are running out. Can we find ways to solve the compelling market pain today? The third stage is, how do you anticipate the future, accelerate your value creation, and transform for the future? Don't stop when you're out of trouble. How do you really think about what's going to change down the road? How can I look down there and say, what could change? And as I'm taking care of things today, can I also prepare myself to be leading for the future? Okay? So that's the long and short. Good entrepreneurial leaders are relentless. They're not reckless. The best entrepreneurs, people will often say, entrepreneurs need to love failure. I'm sorry. I'm an entrepreneur. I hate to fail. Let's just put it out there. But I love to learn. The best entrepreneurs don't love failure. They learn to manage risk. I can see some of you raising your hands and going, yay, she's actually saying making it real. I will make it real for you, let me tell you. So if we take that entrepreneurship, one more framework, and then we're going to start getting to our, panelists. If you take that entrepreneurial leadership definition and we say, how do entrepreneurs, what do they have to do to lead innovation throughout the life cycle? Okay, so let's start with the very first thing of how do we identify opportunities to go forward. And let's track this on a value creation curve at the very front. Think about it at the basics. Think about it as cash flow. I've got a little sign that my Harvard OPM entrepreneurs and business owners gave me that said, cash is king. When you're an entrepreneur or a small business, cash is king. don't run out of cash. That's the big, thing. So in the beginning, I say, look at cash, but don't forget that what you're doing to create a great business is creating value for everyone that needs to come around you to be able to actually build and grow this business, to turn this opportunity into a business, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to want to say, what's the value for customers? What's the value for suppliers? What's the value for partners? What's the value for employees? What's the value for investors? What's the value for us, that allows us to start really accelerating this path to value for everyone. So identifying opportunities when you're looking down, you're trying to understand, is this an opportunity I want to go forward with? If you decide this looks like a good opportunity, and I've got all kinds of analytical models that I teach when I'm teaching a big program, but I'm not going to bother you with them right now. But what drives your cash flow? What drives that value creation? If you decide you want to go forward, then the next thing is, how do I then start actually getting things done, picking out that, entry position I want to get to, that strategic product market position I'm going to use to enter this new field of play. Then how do I say, what are the specific projects and initiatives we have to do to start moving that toward that entry position? And how do I start executing in a way that I can experiment? Because I know in the beginning that everything I'm thinking about that's going to drive value in the future, it's based on assumptions I'm making in the very beginning. And the only thing I know when people pitch me a business plan early on is that the assumptions they're making about this, hockey stick cash flow curve that they always give me, the only thing I know for sure is that the assumptions are wrong. My job is to say how wrong, where wrong, and if wrong, if we have some uncertainty about those assumptions, can we actually start experimenting as we go so that if it's not working, we've got that ability to fan our dogs, to pull against, to have those safety nets in place and those action plans that we can do to actually do it like a pro. Really do it like a pro. Once you start getting traction, how do you scale the entry position? That strategic product market position. I call that scaling your entry business. The product market position is your business that you're starting, okay? I'm looking at scale. What I'm looking for from a financial perspective is I want to see revenues increase and margins improve. If revenues are increasing and my margins are getting better, that means that I'm scaling that business in a way that allows me to get what economists call economies of scale. Economies of scale say that as I grow, my business actually gets more and more, profitable. It gets better. As you start growing, at some point, you might start running out of, growth opportunity. And so the question then becomes, can you expand the scope? Can I go into adjacent markets, adjacent products, adjacent markets with the same product or service offering? Can I go into an adjacent product? Can I go to the same market with an adjacent product service offering? What we're trying to do is to expand the scope of the business. And as we do that, we are trying to add enough value to all of the stakeholders that we're bringing together that we can leverage what we have right now and grow revenue while we improve margins, even as we start entering these adjacent product market positions, okay? Or maybe even launching a brand new business. The third one is if you just keep going and you're expanding, you've already gone to this market, this market, this market, you've added these products, these products, these products to the markets, etc. You're growing and growing, and you start to see your revenue growth decline and competitors coming in, maybe getting a lot more competition, price pressure, etc., that's a sign that you might be getting mature. Okay, so you've just gotten, I actually was the faculty chair of the MBA program at Harvard in the early 90s. You just got the whole 2 years of the MBA program in a couple minutes, okay? That's what we teach. We teach you to do all that. If you think about change then, if I take that life cycle of how to grow a business, building businesses like professionals, like pros, and if I take the change initiatives, this is from John Cotter's work, another Harvard professor, establishing a sense of urgency, developing that vision for the future of where you're going to go to get through this crisis and beyond, communicating that vision through action, forming powerful guiding coalitions, getting rid of obstacles to change, creating those quick wins. That's that back it up and start implementing, etc., and consolidate then the improvements you're making and start scaling and expanding scope, and then institutionalize all this so that your organization can manage the complexity of where you're going. So it's aligned with not only where you were, but where you're going. So you've got, you're realigning the organization. Julie Bottolano, one of our leadership professors, has actually done an article called "Should You Agitate, Innovate, or Orchestrate Change?" So she actually takes all of these actions that we just talked about and talks about change features. This is in Stanford Review. You'll get all these slides, so you'll be able to click on the links and get to the articles if you want them. In the beginning, she says, what do leaders who are trying to make change do? You have to agitate against the status quo. How do we get people disrupted? Now, what's interesting is during crisis change, guess what? You don't have to worry as much about that because everything's already disrupted. So you got a free pass there. After that, how do you innovate? How do you engage people and partners? All the things I talked about as we're innovating on that life cycle, defining strategic positions to enter, identifying capabilities, sequencing and timing the initiatives we're going to use to get started, focusing attention on where we're going, not just where we are today. And then how do you orchestrate adoption, actually institutionalizing the change? Communicating, gaining commitment, aligning all your people, processes, systems, evaluating and identifying gaps between where we want to go and where we are right now, and how are we going to fill those gaps and fix that, and then refining an execution and strategy based on what you learn, leading change, and setting the pace. So let's go back to my life cycle. Down here at the bottom, you're agitating against the status quo, and you're innovating to actually find new ways to move forward. We bring those things together. As you're scaling, you're continuing to agitate and innovate as you start scaling that first business, the entry business that you're going after, the entry product market position. And then as you expand scope, you've got to not only get the new people involved, you've also got to orchestrate change adoption. So you've got to start, complexity is going to start increasing. How do you start changing your organization to manage that complexity as you grow? And then as you mature, can you continue to agitate, innovate, and orchestrate to anticipate the future and transform? Okay? This is what we think about as you think about how to lead through crisis and how to lead in really turbulent times. The reason we teach this is it's no longer enough to just do what you're doing really, really well. Things are changing out there so fast that small businesses can't afford to say, I just want to be small and stay like I am forever, because other people can come in and actually, destroy your competitive advantage over time, and then, it may be too late for you to move forward. So let's get to our panel now. Any questions? Make sure you're jotting them down, okay? But let's start getting our panel involved. Our first panelists are Fifi Bell-Clanton and Gwen Woods, and they're co-owners, co-founders of the Crabby Shack, okay? This is Gwen and Fifi. This is some of their little pictures so you get a sense of it. Preparing the perfect crab was a passion for Fifi Bell-Clanton that became a dream to open a restaurant dedicated to serving delicious crabs in Brooklyn, New York. Gwen's father grew up in the Chesapeake Bay area, and so they had crab too. So she says, Gwen, they were best friends. Gwen, you want to open a restaurant in Brooklyn to serve crab? And they said, sure, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Okay. At a dinner party at Gwen's house in 2005, Fifi brought up the idea, and Gwen said, let's do it. So they made a point of hiring from the local community, mentoring local entrepreneurs, and were featured in the Netflix documentary, She Did That. So you can actually watch the documentary. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute and show you some video, okay? So each one of these, I will show a video or two short ones to go with it. So I've got two for this one. So we'll start with the first one. This is in 2015, right after they started. Keep in mind my story about how hard it is to start scaling and expanding scope, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go ahead and get started.
We're the Crabby Shack. I'm Fifi.
I'm Gwen.
And we own the Crabby Shack Brooklyn. It's on 613 Franklin Avenue. That's between Dean and Bergen.
Okay, perfect. How did you guys come together? We've been friends for over 10 years. And Fifi actually came to me with the idea of the Crabby Shack. One night, we were just out, and she said, I wanted to open up this restaurant, this crab restaurant, and I thought it was an amazing idea. And so she was in fashion, I was in music. We were both tired of our industries, and it's like, let's do this. And so we thought about it I thought about it for a little while, and then one night after a long day of work, I called her. I said, are you sure you really want to do this?
December 13th.
She called me. And she said, yes, let's do it. And ever since that conversation.
Full speed ahead. We went full speed ahead.
Yeah. Perfect. So how long have you been in business?
Yesterday was actually our 8th-month anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Perfect. And within the 8 months that you've been in business, what are your 3 biggest challenges? Well, one challenge is definitely just raising capital. We feel like we have this really great brand, the Crabby Shack, and we feel like we can compete with the big dogs. We feel like this is something we can take globally. We're all into the branding, but we need money, and we're small. But in order to do these things, we need the money. So we want to do marketing. We want to market to people. We'd love to put out
an ad. Yeah.
But we need capital to do that.
I want to, get ads in the newspaper, be able to do like a few specials or some deals, but how do we get it out to the masses? So far, we've utilized social media, but we need some more help. I mean, the community has helped us by supporting us, by watching some of the press articles that we might have that we've been blessed to get, but we definitely could use some more help. I mean, expansion is one of our biggest and most important goals. And although we've hired within the community for our shop now, we want to be able to leave that and focus on number 2. But without capital and the support from, the city even to help with, the plans and the permits and all of those things that go into it, because it was really hard. I mean, we had a 4-month build out, but it took well over 6 months. So it was something that, we had a lot of plans and permits being held up, and just didn't have the proper resources.
Right, right.
Okay, so you get the picture. All of these videos, the link is there, so you can watch the whole thing later on. I want to show you a second one. Okay, so let me go in here. And that one. And go to the next one. So I'm going to show you one now that is more recent.
This your place, right? This is the best crab I've ever had in my life. I mean, she was sitting right there at the middle table, and I was like, oh my God. So it is very rewarding.
Okay. Let me get out of this, and we'll go back to the slides. Okay, so I'll do videos like this and then come back to our panelists. So you struggled a lot, Gwen and Fifi, when you got started. How did you actually make that transition from startup to scale up? And were you before the global health pandemic? And then how did those experiences help you then with what you've done since the pandemic started? So talk a little bit about what you've done since the pandemic started and where you see yourself going in the future. So come on in. Welcome, Fifi and Gwen. Didn't that make you hungry? I got hungry. Getting dinner time.
Hi. Hi. Oh, okay, so well, I'm going to start to talk about how we started. We were like mom and pop shop, like anything else. We started. It was really tough for us. We never worked in the food industry, so we basically learned from our mistakes. We burnt ourselves in the kitchen a whole bunch of times. Like we just literally just kept trying, and then it was a moment where we were sitting there like. At that video, we were like, how can we get more customers? This is weird. Like we had this dream and it wasn't people knocking down the door, only the very first week when we opened. And then after that, it was just like crickets. We were like, doo-doo-doo. And then when we received our first bit of press, we were able to get some traction and that felt good, but we wanted more. So we got a phone call. I mean, the press really made a difference for us. It was literally like I think it was like a Wednesday night, and we're both sitting there and, we've only sold a couple of crab rolls and we're sitting thinking, did we make the right decision? We just thought this was a great idea. We thought, there would be so many other people who'd want, yummy, delicious crab, but how come they're not here? And we got a phone call, said, we'd like to do an article on you, it's Eyewitness News. And we're like, oh yeah, sure. So we did it. And the day it aired, the phone starts ringing that night. Hi, what time do you open? Hi, what do you serve? Hi, can you see the menu? We're like, oh, okay, maybe this is gonna be something. And the next day we had a line around the corner. But the when you say how we started from startup to scale up, it literally started from there, where we had a line, and then again it subsided, right? And then as we keep going, we had that actual video, the video that you referred to, happened to. So sorry, I lost you guys. I don't know how to find you again.
We can see you, so just keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So we basically, we got another bit of press, and after that press, we started to really see there's some momentum here. We also got invited to do a pop-up all the way in Japan in 2017. So now you're fast forward, we opened in July of 2014. By 2017, we were invited to do a pop-up in Japan, where we thought maybe this is like the beginning of having licensing opportunities in Japan. And then shortly after Japan, we did another pop-up with Gotham Market, which was also something. And all these pop-ups were helping us figure out, like, okay, we definitely can operate a number two. So when you ask the question of, how startup to scale up, it was really the press that helped the traction. And then each time we started to grow, we did pop-ups and challenged ourselves and really tried to learn about that. And we continued to scale in that sense.
And that pop-up stores are how you can experiment at a lower cost, right, to start understanding different new markets, et cetera, et cetera. Tell them about what you did in the pandemic.
So in the very beginning of the pandemic, we started panicking because, people didn't want to go outside. And we were like, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay open? Are we going to close? The messages were unclear. I was telling my staff, oh, I think we have to close. And it's like, oh, no, wait a minute. We don't have to close, but there's a limit on people that can come in. And so we said, okay, we're just going to do it. We're going to open. And for about 2 weeks, nothing. We had very, very minimal people ordering food. And then that got tired. I think people also okay, I've cooked at home for 2 straight weeks. I need to order out. And so then it just started picking up. Then, unfortunately, with the unfair targeting of the Asian community, a lot of the crab restaurants are Asian owned. And so the crab restaurants in the New York area started closing. And we were one of the only ones that stayed open. And so we all of a sudden started getting all these other people's business. And so it picked up to this amount. We doubled what we'd ever experienced before.
In all of our years, our gross numbers increased by 100%.
Yeah,
wow.
100%. So then it was like, okay, so then time management became a very important thing. It's like, okay, so how, we have all these people, we have all this food, and how do we get it out? We need to hire more delivery people. So we brought in more delivery because at that time you couldn't eat in still. So you could take out. We started packaging our foods, we packaged our drinks. It's like, okay, so how can we make this efficient? How can we make our business run smoothly? Right. And that all helped us just operate better. And then once things definitely slowed down, once other businesses started opening up, but we were now prepared for our next step. And our next step was that we wanted to sell goods on, we wanted to ship overseas. Ship nationally. Sorry. We wanted to ship nationally. So we sent a proposal to Goldbelly, and they said, hey, you know, we want to do business with you guys. And so we're now actually 3.5 weeks in shipping with Goldbelly. And all of that happened during the pandemic prepared us for this shipping with Goldbelly.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. So they're going to come back at, you know, and so keep that in mind. And they actually leveraged their capabilities to start responding to the crisis. Then they were able to see a new market opportunity and could use what they learned to go after it. Thank you. Let's go to our next panelist, Brianne Mees. And she's co-founder, co-CEO of Tender Loving Empire. And she also is founding this with her husband, and you're going to actually see her husband as part of it. So Tender Loving Empire, I love this quote from them. Something mystical and vital happens inside when someone falls in love with art. Okay? So it's that personal connection that people have to art that is really at the foundation of Tender Loving Empire. From exhibits and concerts, her husband's a musician, she's an artist, so they were doing exhibits and concerts. To the first 800 square foot Tender Loving Empire store in Portland, which opened in 2007. So they opened their first retail store in 2007. It's a nexus of creativity where all kinds of artists could show their work, artists and makers, and people could fall in love with it. Today they have 6 stores, over 90 albums published on their Tender Loving Empire record label, because they do both. You see music from our record label, they sell it in their store, and her husband is part of that. So today, the 6 stores and 30 people working with over 700 plus artists from the community. So let's look at the video from them. We're going to start. We've got 2 again, so I'm going to stop showing slides, go to the video, share my screen, go to the video.
Things about Portland is everybody has a passion. My name is Brianne Mees, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Tender Loving Empire.
Tender Loving Empire is a gift shop for handmade and independently designed gifts from artists all around the country. My favorite thing about Fair is how easy it is to manage our orders, to return things that don't work for us. It feels really curated. You can look for locally made products that are handmade.
The really amazing thing about our store is that the things that you're buying have a story and a person buying them.
Fair has made it really easy to find the things that fit in with our store. It's a cool feeling to be able to be a part of the curation of someone's life.
We are supporting real people, small businesses, creatives in a meaningful way. I'm really proud businesses like ours and businesses like Fair can make a difference in people's lives and help them do the things that they love.
Okay, video number 1. I've got a second video here too, so let me go back in, get out of this one. And we'll show the second one, and this is a music festival. So you're going to see Brianna's husband. He is one of the artists that you'll be seeing coming up very quickly, so watch for his name.
Every night for a while at college, all the soothing elixir of ideals and perfect design. But the hangover was rude. I spent 2 years in fast food, learning a valuable new piece of knowledge. The only truth worth believing is one that can be
Okay, so I had to show you Jared's music, but they have a whole group of different artists that are part of the album. I mean, that have their albums and that they've published their music. And so let me go back here. Get rid of this one. So when we can start the next.
He would be mad at me if I didn't say Jared Mees and the Grown Children, new album out.
New album out. There you go. I love it. I love it, Brianne.
Streamable.
So let's go back to your slide. Okay, so Brianne, you bought this retail store and record label right before the global economic crisis. And while the music industry was also being disrupted by the growth of online music downloads, you survived and actually grew sales in your brick and mortar store and started doing other things. And then when the 2020 global health pandemic shut down retail, how did you use what you learned to not just survive, but to actually start expanding your position in your company to the best year ever this year? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, first of all, I love that you called out the fact that we started right before the last recession, right? So we started our company in 2007, and it feels like a million years ago now in my entrepreneurial journey. Our company looks very different now than it did back then, but I really do see ways that it helped us have it kind of similar to what you were talking about with your background, Lynda, just that we did have to start with this scrappy resilience. We started we had no experience in the retail industry, no experience in the music industry. It was right before what our colleagues call the death of the music industry, in fact. And then the recession hit and we were in a horrible retail location. It was, it was all just pure passion and love for what we wanted to do, which is what you mentioned earlier. But I think that when this pandemic hit, that scrappy mindset kicked in more than I realized, and you highlighting that has made me think about that, how much it is true. I think that the other things we had going into it were the fact that from 2014 to 2019, we had been already rapidly scaling. So from 2014 to 2019, our revenue grew over 1,200%. And so we, as a team, as a leadership team, had been together that entire time, and we were used to reinventing systems. We were used to scrapping everything and starting over with what would work with this new version of our reality. So I think that, combined with the fact that I think we've done a really good job over the years of focusing on our core values and our mission, and our team was just like, I know we're going to talk about team later, but our team has been really aligned around our mission and identifies with it and cares about it. So when it was time to roll up our sleeves when this pandemic hit, we were ready. I won't say that it was easy or that it went smoothly. It was horrible. It was the worst, hardest year of our, my professional career. I think I shared with you all on the preview call that I'm happy to announce that my imposter syndrome is totally gone now after the year, because I do really feel proud of the fact that, we're setting ourselves up not just to survive, we're going to make it. There was many times this year that I didn't have that clear path, for sure. I didn't know that we were going to survive, but we are now, and we're not just going to survive. We are setting ourselves up for our best year yet in 2022, I'll say.
And you also have opened a second store at the Portland airport. If anybody's flying through Portland, stop at the Tender Loving Empire store in the Portland airport. Okay, let's keep going. They'll all be back in a little bit. Now we're going to get Sion Tassane. Yeah, and Sion is the founder and CEO of Tassini. Tassini was founded in 2015 as a for-profit social enterprise. So it's a for-profit business, but was founded with the main mission being this social enterprise mission. Ticini offers low-income U.S. Hispanic immigrant women an opportunity to earn extra income and provide for their families. Through a single-level direct sales model, Ticini's clients purchase wholesale a variety of fashion and home goods sourced from Latin American partners that Ticini sources from, and then they sell them for a profit and keep the profit. So you can see some of the fashion. I'm not a U.S. immigrant, Hispanic immigrant, but I would wear some of that stuff. I want to, start buying on Ticini's catalog. In 2018, Sion received the HBS Making a Difference Award. Sion did graduate from the Business Owner Program that I teach at Harvard Business School. And in 2019, Sion was selected as an Endeavor Entrepreneur, and Ticini was recognized as the 10th fastest growing retail company on the U.S. Inc. 500. And I am also on the board of Endeavor Detroit. He was selected through the Endeavor Miami area, but if anybody's interested in Endeavor, I've got a case on them. I actually worked with them from the very beginning. They're a nonprofit that their mission is to accelerate high-impact entrepreneurship as a tool for economic development in emerging and what I call submerged, but the CEO of the company likes to call re-emerging markets. She keeps saying, Lynda, don't call it a submerged market, it's re-emerging. And now, yes, indeed, since we opened Endeavor Detroit, Detroit is starting to re-emerge, as is Miami, where Sion was from. So I'm going to start with a video, okay? And so I'll show the video, and then we'll have Sion come back. So let me stop sharing this and go to my videos, start sharing the video.
My personal mission statement is to be able to help people, and that's the reason why I created Ticini. Ticini is a for-profit social enterprise whose mission is to empower U.S. immigrant Hispanic women. We do that by providing them a platform of products that women can buy at wholesale, they can sell retail, and they keep the difference.
Cuando vi el catálogo pequeño que me mandaron, yo dije, wow, eso fue amor a primera vista. Este es el negocio que yo quería.
Hispanic women are amazing people, but they're definitely swimming against the current, and they're struggling to make ends meet.
Cuando llegué de mi país aquí, yo me sentía estancada, yo sentía un vacío dentro de mí porque yo decía, Dios mío, pero esto no es lo que yo soñé, ni esto era lo que yo quería. Pero cuando conocí lo que era Ticini, a conocer el producto y empecé a hablar de mi producto, empecé a romper barreras.
No es el país nuestro, la cultura nuestra. Entonces, encontrar una empresa que te ayuda a sentirte en casa y que aparte de ayudarte a sentirte en casa, te ayuda a surgir, te ayuda a salir adelante, te apoya y eso te llena de mucha fuerza.
I once read a quote from Peter Drucker that says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." I actually didn't believe in that quote until recently. And I think a great part of our growth has come from our culture. Ticini was founded in 2015. We have grown close to 4,000%. Our culture is founded in our core values that we live on a daily basis.
Tratamos de empoderar a la mujer latina que vive en los Estados Unidos de habla hispana a que sea una mujer independiente, a que sea una mujer que logre sus cosas, a que sea una mujer que sepa que tiene valía, que puede hacer las cosas que se propone.
Ticini is truly a hybrid between technology, retail, and direct sales. But in addition to that, we also have the opportunity of offering them services. At the moment, we have telemedicine. We also have a huge focus on education, finance 101 or accounting 101, but also on education as to how is it that me as a person can grow.
Me encanta que cuando alguien llega a Ticini viene con un chip comercial súper agresivo de vender, vender, vender y En estas capacitaciones nos encargamos de enseñarle que no es vender por vender, es preocuparse por el cliente. Cuando le decimos a una persona, tú eres capaz, creemos en ti, tú lo puedes lograr, esa persona no solamente logra lo que se ha propuesto, sino que logra muchísimas cosas más, y creo que lo más importante, ella aprende a creer en sí misma.
Tricini me devolvió la esencia de mujer emprendedora que yo tenía siempre. Sé que todavía hay muchas mujeres latinas que se están enfrentando a los nuevos retos y desafíos del tiempo en que estamos, pero sé que lo podemos superar. Sé que si nos lo proponemos, podemos superarlo todo, porque nosotras somos capaces.
Our impact goal is to empower the lives of 500,000 Hispanic women by 2025. We know it's an aggressive goal, but we truly believe that we can accomplish it. I firmly believe that we as small business owners have the responsibility to help people around us.
Es importante sentir que pertenece a algo, y creo que eso es lo que encuentras en Tricini.
Okay, so that's Ticini. Let's go back to our slides. So, Xiang, you've really been successful at launching and scaling a for-profit social enterprise, Ticini. Can you share how you've been able to lead with that passion and purpose that you have, and how you engage others in your firm with the Hispanic women who buy and sell your brands, and then help them engage with their customers with that same sense of passion and purpose? And then how did these experiences help you to survive and grow in the midst of this global health pandemic?
Lynda, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and it's great to be in a panel with such distinguished people. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I think in our case, it has been a constant reminder of why we do what we do. We have clients like Gloria, a US immigrant woman that lives in California that lost her regular job. And thanks to Ticini, she was able to earn an income. And so I think the words purpose and alignment have been key to what I believe has helped us scale. Ticini is a purpose-driven company that I believe our growth has come from a culture that reminds us why we do what we do on a daily basis. Our company's culture is based on 5 values. One of them is impact. The other one is passion. The other one is resiliency. The other one is responsibility. And the last one is union. And so I think that has been key as to why is it that we've been able to grow the way we have been able to grow. Regarding the last couple of 15 months, again, we go back to our values. And I think going back to our values, the first one that we can think of is union. We made sure that all our clients or our employees were secure, were safe, and they had a safe home office that they could work. Then it came resiliency when we had to engage with our vendors just to make sure that we had products for us to be able to provide for our clients. And obviously the last one was responsibility, that we had to make sure that we secure enough funding so we could continue the growth because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I think, again, what we have learned from this is sticking to what we know how to do and why we do what we do has been key.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now our last panelist, and Mike, just so you know, I'm going to skip right to your question and answer right after the last panelist. So just so you know that. Okay, so let me go to our last panelist, and I'd like to introduce you to Susana Robledo. And she's founder and CEO of Cube Care. In 1999, Susana landed her first contract with a hospital to repair and wash their cubicle curtains. And with this contract, she launched Cube Care. Initially, it was a services company providing cubicle repair to hospitals. Today, Cube Care has expanded into a full-scale design, manufacturing, and installation facility and service offering. Cube Care supports the local community by providing jobs to prison inmates that allows them to learn transferable skills upon their release, and provides on-site daycare for their preschool age kids as they start to transition back into the community. So let's go ahead and stop the video, the slides, and watch the video, and then we'll be back to talk to Susanna. Whoops. Let's go back to the beginning. Try that again.
My name is Susana Robledo, and I am the CEO and founder of Cube Care Company, and we specialize in niche and privacy products for the healthcare industry. I am a minority, and I am also an immigrant, and being able to have this corporation and being able to provide jobs to over 70 people and close in the wealth gaps, it is important to me as a person that I am giving my best back, because I wouldn't have been able to have been in this position if it wasn't because of other people within the community that actually helped me through.
When I think about how Cube Care has impacted the local community the most, I think of us giving opportunities to those from the halfway home. People who are trying to insert themselves back into the community.
Miss Susana Robledo gave me a chance. I took it and ran with it. It was not easy at first. Boy, I was like a knucklehead, boy, I ran into walls left and right here. But she kept the doors open, never shut them on me.
This is my community. This is where I was born and raised here. So where I'm at, I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm you know, I have a purpose, and I feel like I'm giving back. I grab guys that I know that need work, and I get them, and I use them, and I help them. People from my community. I've never felt love like this. This is like I'm about to cry. This is a family right here for real.
Integrity is what builds trust and builds long-lasting relationships, and it creates a culture within the company that everybody has to do the right thing.
People here from graduates from Georgia Tech, from white, black, Hispanic, you can name them all.
We don't treat anybody differently, and we carry that amongst our local community, including with our customers. We've been able to work with community hospitals, clinics, commercial businesses that are able to see our story and are able to relate to what Cube Care can bring to them and what we can bring to the whole society and our local community as a whole.
I noticed that great leaders are always focused on people. You can't be a great company if you don't have the right people. And how do you foster those right people? They have to truly believe in the essence of what is true to the company, and they have to be able to act out the values of the company when no one is watching. I am not in a race to be successful by ourselves. We're in a race to make our community successful.
I want to share with you guys what it is to be with an entrepreneur that has faced difficult challenges, from losing her father at a very young age to traveling to a country not knowing the language, to building the empire that I consider Cube Care is at this time. I am beyond proud, grateful, and humbled to be a part of this organization.
Okay, so you can see why I love working with ICIC, right? This is the best job in the world, is getting to, meet and, interact with all of these wonderful people. Let's get some thoughts from Susanna, then I want to send this over to Mike to get questions from all of you. So how did your experience as an immigrant shape your entrepreneurial journey in building Cube Care from one single contract to over 10 million in revenue? And then very quickly talk about, what was your strategy during the global healthcare pandemic. So thank you.
Okay, so let me answer the first question. The first question to me is, how did my being an immigrant shape me? There was a couple of things that made me very successful by being an immigrant, and is that I learned that I am a guest here. And because I am a guest in this country, I need to be in my best behavior at all times, and I need to earn my keeps. I need to bring value to everything that I do. I want to be able to earn the right to be here and to be called an American. The second thing that I learned is is to be adaptable and flexible. One day my mom moved a lot, chasing jobs and chasing work. So I went from one school to another school, from one neighborhood to another neighborhood, and being able to have to adapt to new friends, to new teachers, to new surroundings all the time, made me feel that I had to be a chameleon and be able to fit into just about any situation. And I couldn't hold on to anything from the past. I needed to just stay moving forward all the time. So that made me be very adaptable and flexible. The other thing that I felt all the time when I was in Colombia, this was my country, and I felt sort of kind of like an entitlement. And when I got here, it was like the safety vest came off, and I learned that nothing was going to be given to me. I had to learn absolutely everything and earn it. And I had to work hard in order for me to get some kind of safety. The other thing that I learned from my mother was that she kept on, sometimes as a child, I would say, oh, we have so many problems. She's like, no, honey, we have challenges. And if we could oversee and overcome those challenges, then those challenges become opportunities. So those were kind of like the things that have been also a pillars in my personal life to be able to run my business the way that I do. And regarding the pandemic, my strategy was to simplify my business, to focus and execute. So it was so chaotic when the whole thing happened. Everybody was pulling me from all kinds of directions, and what do we do here? What do we do there? And the first thing we needed to do was safety. We needed to get everybody into safety. So we wanted to get all of our staff back home. We have a lot of elderly people that work with us. We wanted them to be safe as well. And that initiated for us to be able to change our softwares, our system, in order for everyone to be able to work from home and be safe. The other thing was that I had worked for many, many years in disposable curtains, which were the current, we've always made the reusable ones that everybody is familiar with. And, we had this product that was disposable, and some people understood it and some people didn't, but the time was perfect for us to say, and now bring it to the customer's attention when they are having all of these expenses and they don't have time to wait a month for new curtains, and for us to say, we have disposable curtains at a price that, it's disposable. You could really dispose of these, and that helped us, push that product and really launch it in a grand scale. The other thing that we did is we listened to customers. We were very keen to listening to them, and they were telling us their problems that they were having. And we came up, one of the problems that they were having is, our linens are going everywhere. We don't know where they are. And, it was like, okay, we got to get disposable linens for them. And so that became very important. And we launched that as well. We wash the curtains, as and you saw in the video, we maintain them. That has been our core business and what keeps us running all the time. And at one point we were offering the antimicrobial treatment. So it was an added thing that you would pay for. I right now have a brain tumor, and at that point, it made me realize how important it was. This was not something I should be charging for. This is something that needed to go to every single customer, every single curtain that we washed. It was a personal commitment of me giving back, to them. So every single curtain that goes through our system gets treated with an antimicrobial system so that it reduces hospital-acquired infections. The other thing that that we did that it was hard to say no to was the fact that we had a lot of contacts with healthcare, and just about every single day we were getting 10, 15 emails from different suppliers and different manufacturers all over the world, and even friends of mine asking me, saying, look, I have PPE items, can I use your list, or can we team up together and you push this product for us? And to me, it was so easy to say yes, but I did not understand the product. I'm in it for the long run, and I didn't know what was right, what was wrong. So I didn't want to confuse and damage the relationships that I had and my reputation with my clients. So I walked away from that, and it was the best. At first, I was kind of like, oh, maybe that wasn't a very good thing for me to do. But I realized that by doing so, I didn't burn my bridges. I didn't offer products that were fake or did not provide what they were actually saying they did. And I stuck to my core. I stuck to what I did. So going back to simplify, focus, and execute. And that has made us very successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. And thank you to the whole panel, to Mike and everybody, and to all of you. I'm going to now turn it over to Mike, because we don't have much time, Mike, but I will say that if there's extra questions that people have that we can't get to, I would be happy to work with you to get some, answers to some of those questions.
Well, thank you very much, Lynda. And first of all, I just want to say, wow, Fifi, Gwen, Brianne, Susie, Sion, your stories are so inspirational. And, thank you for sharing them. You guys are so much more than just successful business people. I mean, the fact that you are winners of IC 100, but that only describes a small portion, your duty and your obligation to your communities. What you bring is absolutely amazing. So I am very proud to be associated with you. Lynda, what can I say? It began with your first analogy. I never heard that analogy. It made me think of my own analogy, which is, whenever I attend anything from you, I think of myself as an old dog, and you make me think that you can teach an old dog new tricks. Just the way that you simplify the complex and make it understandable and actionable is incredible. So I just want to thank you. You guys were absolutely fantastic. You hit it out of the park. I also just wanted to tell people that, our deadline for this year's IC 100 is June 6th. You will be getting an email with this presentation, as well as the recording of it, and then links to this to either nominate businesses or to apply yourself. We'd love to spotlight more and more businesses like you. I think it's really a critical and important thing what you guys are doing. You guys represent the best of our country, and I am tremendously thankful to all of you. So that's it. And if you do have questions, we will be sure to get them to Lynda, and just reach out to any one of the ICIC team. So thank you. Goodbye.